Hello, welcome back. Thank you for joining me once again for my readings of The Projections of the Astral Body by Sylvan, Muldoon and Hereward Carrington. I appreciate you joining me to continue on with the readings. So we are with page 159. The proper dream will always project the phantom. Here we are. There we go. Now, it is not necessary to employ the dream I have mentioned. You can construct your own dream, making it appropriate in every respect, in action and sensation. Perhaps you think you can dream of this sort of dream, and that the astral body will not do as I have stated. Don't deceive yourself. It will, even though you are not clearly conscious. When I first experimented along this line, I find that the repercussion of the body would take place at times, but that was always because I had dreamed that the elevator descended too quickly. I found also that I could produce repercussion of the astral body at will, merely by imagining myself falling from a high building. As I entered sleep, I would hold this thought in mind, that I was falling from a high building, and soon after going to sleep I would repercuss. All you need to do to convince yourself that these things I am telling you are true is to follow the instructions and find out for yourself. If you like to swim, of course you must plot the dream so that as you are in the water, the water must rise, bearing you upward. Then, when you have been raised to a position when the water floods its banks, you swim outward. This follows the action which the phantom takes in projection. Many, no doubt, will say that they could never project their astral body into space, that they could never disconnect one body from the other. Yet every time one goes to sleep, the astral counterpart moves out of the physical. To some extent, every time you have a falling dream, your astral body has been projected and is returning as you dream of the fall. But the big problem, I'll repeat again, is how how can one project and possess true consciousness while projected? I've said that consciousness is more or less a matter of chance, and I have tried a few experiments in which I succeeded in bringing about consciousness, which I do not think would have appeared on these particular occasions, but for the factor which I then introduced. I shall discuss this matter shortly. However, now that we are on the subject of dream control, a few more suggestions for dream plots will not be amiss. The main action, of course, is the upward movement in getting the phantom out, so even though the sideway action is not equally realistic, always have the upward movement of self vividly pictured in the mind, and, if possible, with the body in the dream lying in a horizontal position as it moves upward. Plan your dream as you would plan an important matter in daily life. A mere fact that it is but a dream does not lessen its significance in moving the phantom. Here are a few suggestions for dream plots. Just some images here that they've got in the book. So we're looking at here the astral body of Ka visiting the mummy. So then we have, as you can see here, and then the mummy there. The phantom, slightly out of coincidence, you see the flat body, and then you can see the phantom just slowly reaching out, and then at the bottom here, the phantom in the air above the physical body there, and then you can see the cord that's coming out here. These are depictions. The phantom sometimes upright, so moving to that position. Arrows show the route of the phantom times taking to project. So although we see it in the image here of going over and across, it's actually gone up and over and is lying there, and the cord is still attached. This is the position which the phantom often occupies prior to a flying dream, which is followed by a falling dream. Phantom often uprights here. And then here we go. Now I have got to this stage once where I've seen this and I've been conscious in this position, and it's a very, very, very interesting experience. Phantom projected and upright within cord activity range. So this kind of scenario happens quite a lot, but for me to be in that conscious position where I can see myself standing up and looking back on myself and in complete control, fascinating. Sometimes the phantom can be projected and will upright within cord activity range when negative factors set in, for example, emotion or noise. The phantom will be pulled backward into the horizontal through the air to a position directly over the physical and then downward into it. See? So he's gone like this, up, 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 here, lying flat, then gradually comes down to sit on the feet. The swaying of the astral body. Now, this is also very significant. So, when you're preparing for your astral projection, for me, I feel a rocking sensation, and that's when the repercussion happens for me, and I go back inside myself, and I can't seem to get out of it, because that fear sets in, which they've explained many times that it's the fear that puts you back. But because I know with the rocking sensation, either shoulder to shoulder, so sort of on my back with each shoulder dipping, almost like a figure of eight. I know that my phantom is trying to exteriorize, but I can't. My brain, my conscious brain goes, no, 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 and pulls it back. It's fascinating to me. Old Chinese print showing the projection of the astral body and the cord and cable binding to the astral and the physical body. Very interesting. So this is I can show clips of these pictures later. And then the departure of the astral body. So here's another depiction of a person, and then he's got people observing the astral projection here, and here she is. And what's interesting here is that she's heading towards the light. There's light here in the corner. The atomic structure of the astral body, according to Doctors Malta and Van Zelst, the small black dots represent the atoms of the body. Wow, that's interesting also, because that's more on the scientific element rather than the theories. Okay, let's go. Some of which I have taken from Dr. Carrington's Higher Physical Development. See a mental image of yourself in a mirror, your own picture, construct as it were, or imagine a mirror about 20 feet behind you in space, and picture yourself walking backwards into that mirror. Another exercise is to endeavour to lift yourself out of your body to a point about 18 inches above your own head, like Baron Munchausen lifting himself by his own bootstraps. Imagine that you are streaming out of the body, coming out of all the pores. Now this steam is collecting just above you and is forming a replica of yourself and is then carried upward on the air. Climbing a ladder is another good exercise to construct mentally, likewise climbing the rope. The writer has had many projections which were brought about by dream of climbing a ladder. Another, and a very good one, for it corresponds closely to the action of the phantom while exteriorizing, is to imagine a tank gradually filling with water, on the top of which one floats. The object is to find a small hole in one side of the tank through which one passes out. However, if the subject has a fear of water, such an exercise is not advisable. On the other hand, for one who likes water, bathing and swimming or floating, a better exercise could hardly be constructed, for the action of the self is correct and the sensation would be pleasant. Another is to imagine oneself whirling. Whirling objects are much used in development work. The dervishes and other Orientals resort to whirling exercises, which doubtless have this fundamental object of loosening the astral body from the physical, and in inducing an ecstatic state of consciousness as the result. You will recall what I told you formerly, i.e. the dizziness is merely a condition of looseness of the astral counterpart. Epileptics usually begin to whirl just as a spell is coming on, and often making several complete revolutions of the body before catalepsy begins. The image of a revolving star is used to stimulate the activity of the astral body. Concentration upon the image of a whirlpool, the sense of expanding and contracting the body, is very useful, as that of being carried along on the surface of a wave. One very useful exercise is the image of a cone. The image of a cone is one form or another is quite common in development work. because it involves the idea of contracting to a point or expanding from a point, thus passing through a waterspout or an hourglass-shaped space. Construct a cone of circles, becoming smaller and larger and turning such a cone inside out, or making a revolving disc assume the form of a cone and flatten out again into a disc is another. Holding the image in mind of a flame of fire and endeavouring to identify yourself with the flame is another very useful mental image to stimulate the activity of the astral body. If you could really see an astral body while projected, it would appear like a white flame holding the human shape and dimensions. A good exercise for this purpose is to close the eyes, then roll the eyeballs until they are fixed at a point of the forehead, between the eyes, in much the same way as the yogis do, and make a concentrated effort to gather together your physical energies. Together your psychic energies at that point. Will, with the whole force of your being, that you are there, and when you have concentrated your full self at that spot, that will then will, with the whole force of your being, that you are there, and when you have concentrated your full self at the spot, then will that you shall be projected outwards in space. So we're talking about the will here, not will as in what general conversation. This is the will to do something, so it's making it complicated for me to say. From the point of departure, this method is a strain upon the eyes, but is one which has been found very effective as the result of numerous experiments and experiences. Here is a very effective developing exercise. Lean back in an armchair in such a manner that you can look directly into a mirror, a real mirror, which is about 4 feet in front of you. Relax, rest in peace, think only of yourself. Now try to go to sleep, watching through partly closed eyes of the image of yourself in the mirror. Continuing, you will eventually become drowsy and your head will begin to nod. But just keep watching the image in the mirror. This is almost automatic way of developing, for as the astral tries to withdraw, your head tends to fall. If the astral does withdraw, the head will drop. Thus, you see, the state you are trying to attain consciously is more impressive, for the instant you are about to rise to sleep, your head begins to fall, which at once arouses you slightly. The next step is to imagine that you are floating out of the chair into the air of the room. Just as you are in this condition, the condition in which your head wishes to fall, in which you are really going to sleep, in which the astral body is really moving slightly out. You have doubtless noticed that the instant a person falls or rises to sleep, the physical body seems to collapse slightly, and if there be any member of the physical body which is not resting upon something solid, it will fall. Also, that it has the effort of slightly reviving the subject. Now, this principle can be employed in order to stimulate consciousness, as the astral body is trying to withdraw, for it is the withdrawing of the astral which brings about the relaxation. You may have observed that this principle was employed in the last exercise given. It can be employed likewise while going to sleep in the horizontal position. It is interesting to try this and note the consequences. After retiring, hold your dream construction before you, and at the same time you hold one arm in the air so that it will fall when you go to sleep. Now, as you enter the hypnagogic state, the arm will begin to sway, to fall, and this will slightly awaken you, for you must not let it fall. In this way you force consciousness farther into the hypnagogic state. It is not at all unusual, when trying this exercise, for the subject to feel breathless in the region of the stomach, just when the arm is falling, and he will jump slightly to stop it. The slight jump is nothing less than the slight repercussion of body. Even subjects most unadaptable to projection can experience what I have just described, can actually feel the astral moving. By following this formula, this is a good exercise to practice, for in order to dream this formula, This is a good exercise to practice, for in order to dream true, you must be able to hold consciousness up to the very moment when you rise to sleep. It is true that some people never have a consciousness of going to sleep. In fact, most people do not. But until the subject can experience the consciousness of going to sleep, he will never be able to dream true. It is not as difficult to cause the projection of the astral body by the dream control method as you might think. Once the etheric begins to rise, the dream impresses the action of the dream body, and the action of that body impresses the dream. This may be a little difficult to comprehend, but it is true. The whole trick lies in the proper start, in the proper condition of the mind and the take-off. You do not have to start the body. It will start itself as you enter sleep, but you must get into the dream and keep the body moving around. The astral naturally moves out of coincidence at the moment of sleep. It naturally starts itself, and that is just the moment when you must mentally project yourself into the upgoing elevator, or whatever the dream may be, and keep going. The dream body, of course, is nothing more nor less than the astral body in partially conscious condition. In such a dream, the astral body acts out exactly whatever the dream may be. Properly constructed dream is as sure to move the astral body out as the dream of falling is to move into it. The queer thing about this type of dream phenomenon is that you dream what is actually happening. So far as the action and sensation in the astral body are concerned, it is natural for the inexperienced investigators to say that the dream might begin by holding true to the plot and then divert from it, but it never will. The dream holds the astral activity true, and, being a reality, the dream is true. If you become completely conscious in such a dream, you would usually find yourself in some place corresponding to the place of action, which was last seen in the dream. That is, if you use the elevator dream, for example, and become conscious just as you are uprighting yourself at the top story, you would find yourself in the astral body uprighted, directly over the shell. I care not how nonsensical this may seem to anyone. It is the truth, and I have found it to work out time after time. It is a pleasant and certain way of projecting the astral body into space. Okay, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate that. In regards to any other experiences that you're having, I apologise. My stutter's a little off today. My concentration is a little bit haywire. I will do better next time. But thank you very much for listening, and I'll look forward to reading again for you, possibly tomorrow. So thank you. Bye bye.